is crazy. He's implicated. I don't understand how else you can describe this situation. Even like Trump fans are looking at this and being like, it's a little weird. But breaking news, House Oversight Chair has issued subpoenas for the Epstein files and is deposing the Clintons. That's right. It's happening. Ugh.
Hi, I'm Diana Macedo. We have breaking news. The House Oversight Committee is issuing a subpoena to the Justice Department for the Jeffrey Epstein files. The Republican-controlled committee is also issuing subpoenas for former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and 8 former top law enforcement officials. Committee Chairman James Comer says he wants the Justice Department to turn over the, quote, full, complete, unredacted Epstein files by August 19th, setting up a potential standoff between Congress and the Trump administration. Let's bring in Justice Department reporter Alex Mallon for more. Alex, what are they hoping to get from these depositions, and what happens if these people don't comply?
Well, what they're hoping to get is what this administration originally promised it would release, and then obviously during the early July days backtracked like from that controversial memo that they issued saying that they were not going to release any more files. This is basically Congress taking the driver's seat and saying that we are going to demand these files. They're asking the administration to respond by August 19th. They've also issued a wave of subpoenas for officials like former attorneys general dating back to the Bush administration, and also you just mentioned former President Bill Clinton as well as Hillary Clinton. That could also set up a potential interesting legal fight because it's really abnormal for former presidents to ever appear for testimony before Congress. They could argue there are some significant separations of powers concerns there. But obviously what the Congress is seeking is information related to Jeffrey Epstein's activities as well as Ghislane Maxwell's activities and the of underage girls, and all of these records that would relate to federal investigations into his conduct.
Alex, how significant is it that these subpoenas are being issued by a Republican-controlled committee?
Well, I mean, this release also notes that this was actually done by unanimous voice vote. You had support from Democrats who see this right now as a really bruising political fight for this administration that has caused a lot of consternation among Trump's most devoted MAGA supporters. I mean, this is something that they really see.
Bro, Trump could do the funniest thing, okay? Bill Clinton could do the funniest thing. I'm just saying. Take it all down, baby. Come on. Come on. Mutually assured destruction. Just drop it, dude. Just get up there and say it all. Be like, yeah, that's right. Trump was there with me on Lolita Express. Hell yes. Oh my God. I mean, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But man, it would be sweet, dude. Oh my God. The entire executive and former leadership just like takes itself out due to their Jeffrey Epstein connections. Oh my Lord. That would be, Trump supporters wouldn't believe the Trump accusations and only hyper focus on Clinton. I don't know. I mean, you're right. That's the red meat. But the reason why I don't think Trump has touched that red meat is because of the potential pushback. And as I said before, because like I told you already that eventually they have to give their base of support. They have to give the MAGA people something. Right? They have to give the MAGA people something. And if it's just Hillary and Bill Clinton, there are a lot of people who are going to be satisfied with that for sure. Okay? And there is plenty of evidence for Bill and Hillary's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. They're probably the most high profile people Americans care about, but I just don't think that you can take out Bill and Hillary Clinton like that without repercussions. Just say Billary, dude. I don't have time for this. True. Billary.
As they have the administration currently on its heels on an issue that we haven't really seen before, like throughout this entire administration, they've been able to kind of.
Yeah, they are. They're the load-bearing, potential alleged files that hold this structure together.
Shirk or escape any scrutiny. So anytime that they can get Republican partnership in demanding this, they're going to take advantage of that. I think that what remains now is the question is, how will the Justice Department respond? They are.
What the hell is a cum dance, dude? Maybe use a different phrase than load-bearing file. I mean, but that's what it is.
Very typical to really be protective over their investigative holdings. This will be something that we could see result in a really interesting court fight with a Republican administration opposing and actively trying to fight against this effort by a Republican Congress.
All right, Alex Mellon, thank you.
We got new information on the latest back and forth over the files related to convicted sex traffickers Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislane Maxwell. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has issued a slew of deposition subpoenas.
What are the actual allegations against Hillary? I never really knew that part. Like, it's obvious Bill because of his past, but is the idea that Hillary was also teenage girls? No, but Billary went to the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico a bunch. Hillary's connection to Jeffrey Epstein is it runs deeper than I don't know, like Noam Chomsky or some shit.
From multiple people, including the Department of Justice, former President Bill Clinton, and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. CBS News Justice reporter Jake Rosen following this development from Washington. So walk us through this, Jake.
And also the Clinton Foundation with Ghislane Maxwell, and Ghislane Maxwell being a guest of honor at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Like, the Clintons are insanely connected to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislane Maxwell, but Hillary Clinton's connections directly to Ghislane Maxwell run deeper. Like, I don't know if Hillary Clinton was like doing philia. I mean, if you ask me about Bill, well, you know.
Well, that's right. While the House is out, Reed, because of a different legislation relating to a potential floor-wide vote of potentially forcing the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files, James Comer, who leads the House Oversight Committee, and Democrats who are on that committee have not stopped pushing for more information coming from...
You think the Cuomos are connected? Yes. I know that they are through Ghislane as well.
People in the government, but people who have covered and worked on these investigations going back 2 or 3 presidential administrations. We're talking former Attorney Generals William Barr and Jeff Sessions. We're talking about former FBI directors, Merrick Garland, who was the Attorney General under the Biden administration, in addition to obviously former President Bill Clinton and his wife, former First Lady Hillary Clinton, and former FBI Director James Comey, among many others. This is in an attempt to potentially bring out new information, but the bigger takeaway here is that the House Oversight Committee is actually going after, and again it's led by Republicans, is going after Trump's Department of Justice to get access to any and all potential conversations that were had under President Biden's watch between the Department of Justice and the White House relating to Jeffrey Epstein, but also they're going after all the files that are potentially in the possession of the Department of Justice to independently get access to those, to sort through them, to potentially weed out other information that the Department of Justice has not put out yet. It's another big step in Congress's now fight to force some transparency after the Trump administration, again, Reed, we've covered this for weeks, has promised some and then kind of walked that back.
And you say all of the files, which is interesting, but is there any discussion in Washington, any question about why specific people have been named? You went through them. I'm especially interested in 2 names, former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State, and before that, Senator Hillary Clinton.
Well, we know that, former President Clinton, to be clear to our audience, was on those flight logs and has been associated with Epstein and his associates for a number of years. That would certainly be reason number 1. But whether you actually get to bringing him in front of this committee is a totally different question, in which, at least for Clinton and First Lady Hillary Clinton, it's more of an act of political move. Because very likely, Reed, former President Clinton would have to voluntarily go before this committee to offer new information. We've seen presidents before try to fight these out, going back to even the Truman administration fighting against, the Red Scare when he was accused of that, or President Trump. Think about 2022 when that House investigative panel was going after him for his actions on January 6th. President Trump sued, claiming that he had the separation of powers and the ability to not go before this committee, and eventually the committee kind of dropped that request. So it depends on what former President Clinton wants to offer here. But again, for some of these other people who are now private citizens and out of politics, it's certainly possible that they might come in and want to talk, and it's certainly possible that they point back to the Department of Justice, who's in charge now, and say, listen, you're going to have to go to them to get more information about what you're seeking here, because they, at least are, as of now, are in possession of all of these files.
Well, Jake, you rightly said we've been covering it for weeks. I'm going to catch that ball and toss it right back to you because I have a feeling you'll be covering this for weeks still ahead. Good to talk to you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Breaking news sources tell CNN that the Trump administration is considering whether to make an audio recording and transcripts of Ghislane Maxwell's interview with the Justice Department public. CNN's Elena Treen is back with us from the White House. What can you tell us, Elena?
Yeah, that's right. Well, first I would point out, Pamela, that it wasn't previously known that they actually had made an audio recording of the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's interview with Ghislane Maxwell, which we know occurred over the period of 2 days.
Is Bill even mentally capable or trustworthy given his mental state right now? Like, how much information are we really supposed to believe? I think he's all right. I don't know. If they leaked the audio recording, would you listen to all of it on stream? Yes. 100%. Bill was in a worse position overall. I think when Hillary was running, like in 2016, he looked like he was going crazy. But since then, I've seen other videos of him where he seems to be fine. I don't really know.
Weeks ago, last month, and essentially from what we're hearing from both sources within the Justice Department and here at the White House, 3 senior administration officials told us that what's currently being discussed is whether or not they want to make the audio and the transcripts of that meeting public. Now, we know that they are going through and digitizing some of the audio. We were told by one official that the interviews were more than 10 hours, and also going through transcribing it and, of course, redacting parts of it where maybe victims' names who have not been previously made public, trying to redact those if they do ultimately release this information. Now, I think a big question, of course, is we all knew that Blanche went to Florida to have a sit down with Maxwell, one of Epstein's associates who is currently serving a 20-year term for some sex crimes that she was engaged in along with Epstein. And the question was, are you even going to share any of that information? Now we're learning that that is, of course, a big topic of conversation between people here at the White House and the Justice Department. Some of the people we spoke with said that they want to release this information sooner rather than later. They believe that the Trump administration needs to be more in control of the optics of all of.
Nobody is considering Al-Qaeda. Epstein worked for Al-Qaeda and China and Hamas. Yeah. Jeffrey Epstein was actually Russia, China, Al-Qaeda, Iran, and Hamas. Famously. All of them. Definitely not Israel. Okay? Do not say Israel, please. Anybody but Israel is who Jeffrey Epstein was working for. Okay? Oh my God. How crazy that this guy who was able to operate inside of American boundaries freely was meeting up with high-ranking intelligence officials from both the CIA and also the Mossad. He was just simply working with the KGB. He was working with Russia, and he was working with Iran, and he was working with, are you sure? Yeah, I'm joking. Whoever they personally consider to be an op at any given moment. You know,
this. Others said, they believe that the Epstein story has largely died down right now, and they would prefer not to resurface that at this moment. But all to say, it's a big topic of conversation. We could see some of this information come to light shortly. I would also note that we did hear from White House Communications Director Stephen Chung, who essentially said that he believed that this is nothing more than CNN.
This is a unique situation because, like, I do think Hillary getting into trouble with the Epstein connection is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But also, I want more evidence and I want the truth to come out in terms of, like, who Jeffrey Epstein was connected to, how he was, like, who else he was connected to. And I feel like if they just simply used this as a gift, if they went after Hillary and Hillary alone, it's just like, that's kind of messed up, because on the one hand, I'm like, sick, great, well deserved. But also on the other hand, it's like, well, there's still plenty of other people, we're not packing this up, it's not going away. I also don't really know how this would work as far as, like I said, mutually assured destruction.
Trying to desperately to create news out of old news. He was pointing to a Newsmax interview the president did last week where he essentially said that he would like to release everything, but that we don't want people to get hurt that shouldn't be hurt. He also argued that he hadn't, at this point, this interview was done Friday, that the president argued he hadn't spoken directly with Blanche about this. So all to say, this is new information that we, of course, had not known before. The fact that there is an audio recording of this and that perhaps the White House is going to release this transcript of everyone kind of staying by to see what ultimately they will do, Pamela.
All right, Elena, thanks so much.
Joining us now, CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. Ellie's a former federal and state prosecutor. What's your reaction, Ellie, to the Justice Department considering releasing of Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's interview that went on for hours and hours with Maxwell?
Well, Wolf, it's significant, first of all, to know that an electronic recording actually exists. That's actually in compliance with DOJ policy that's been in place the last decade or so that says when you are interviewing a federally incarcerated defendant, you are supposed to electronically record it. And so that means if this comes out, we will have a verbatim record of what was said. We won't have to rely on someone's notes or testimony, which can be fallible at times. The other thing that's really important to note is the decision whether to release this is entirely the Justice Department's. It sits in Pam Bondi's hands. This is not a grand jury testimony, so they don't need to go to a judge. So the decision here whether to put this out is 100% up to Pam Bondi.
How common is it, Ellie, for the U.S. Justice Department to publicly release this type of recording?
It's extremely uncommon, almost unheard of, Wolf. If we're talking about prosecutors going into a prison to speak with somebody who's a defendant, who's a potential witness, potential cooperating witness.
Yeah, I mean, is Trump's literal lawyer, man. Is Trump's lawyer, who is now the deputy attorney general, is crazy. He's implicated. I don't understand how else you can describe this situation. Like, it's so transparently corrupt that even like Trump fans are looking at this and being like, it's a little weird. It's a little weird.
You would never publicize and put out and make and disclose publicly the interview that you had with that person. That would be an investigative file. That would be something you would keep in-house. You would never put it out. But of course, a lot of what we've seen here is happening outside of the normal track.
Well, CNN is learning this morning that the Justice Department has an audio recording and transcript of the interview it conducted with Epstein's accomplice, Ghislane Maxwell, and the administration has been considering releasing that publicly. What do you think about that? Would you support it?
I would support it. I mean, it was a very unusual interview to begin with. It's very unusual that she's been moved to the prison that she is in. We need transparency right now. Just the lack of transparency, what appears to be a desire by the White House to hide what is there. Let's just see what it is. I mean, this man was disgusting. He is guilty of horrific crimes. We are forgetting that there are victims that are still recovering, more than 1,000 of them. We need to know what the facts are, and then we need to move on, because quite frankly, not the Democrats, it's the Republicans in the Congress that are keeping business that needs to get done for the people of this country by blocking rules to consider anything.
Well, there are two victims, at least two, who actually wrote the court. And their identities are anonymous right now, but they're concerned that they could be exposed with the release of grand jury testimony, right? They say that this is political warfare and that people are being insensitive to these victims. How can Congress simultaneously push for transparency while also protecting the victims here?
I think the victims have a right to have their names not made public. I think that there have been, we know that there's an ability to hide their names, yet talk about what the facts and some of it was. I have, unfortunately, I'm glad that the person felt that they could come forward and talk to me. They're scared to death. They don't want their name to become public or become part of a hate tunnel. You know, people don't understand what happens to people when their name becomes public. People that have...
Especially on this issue, come on. Like, people are already ruthless to victims. There is definitely an environment. There is definitely an environment of protecting abusers. But outside of that, especially in this case, like beyond the misogyny tourists and whatnot that will go after all the victims just because they hate that shit in general. You know, there are a lot of suspicious deaths surrounding people that have come out against like Epstein or even an affiliate like Kevin Spacey.
Don't know them. They have no facts. Just go after them in all kinds of horrific, brutal, bullying, frightening,
Cry me a river. I don't care about these people's reputations. Release a list. No, man, we're talking about the victims, dude. What? We're not talking about like Jeffrey Epstein affiliates. I don't give a shit about Jeffrey Epstein affiliates. I want those names. We all want those names. We're talking about the victims, dog. What is wrong with you, chatter? Calm down.
They've already been victims. They want to move on with their life, and they're scared to death about what is going to happen if their names become public.
So tell us a little bit more about that conversation you had. And, you know, you said they want to move on with their life, and yet, you know, the Democrats and Republicans are calling for more transparency, which will only keep this out there in the headlines.
I think that the calling for transparency is there a list? Is there a list of, you know, here's what happened. Okay, it wasn't Democrats who called for this. As part of his campaign, he said he would make the Jeffrey Epstein list public. The Attorney General stood in front of the White House and said, I have the list on my desk. We will make this public. They said to their mega base, we're going to be transparent. We're going to tell everybody what happened.
Make
but
England
you know, when
great
you
again.
release a list, it's of the
Oh my God, mega. Make Epstein great again. That's what does Debbie Dingle know?
abuse. It isn't of the victims. In this country, we have tried very hard to protect the victims. I'm somebody who works in domestic violence abuse every single day, trying to.
I think the Epstein files, which 1000% exist, are a distraction, which will be prolonged to make sure more deportations happen, more Israel funding, and more tax exemption for the rich. Congress won't do shit. Release a list of billionaires and politicians who make up the foundation of the U.S. I mean, I agree with you on the second part, but I don't think it's like a distraction per se. And the reason why I don't think it's a distraction is because like the interest in this is real, and a lot of very powerful people, as you also said, are implicated. So you can't say it's a distraction necessarily, because the distraction can't be something that is so important to continuing the empire. And it's certainly not a distraction because like it's something that they're trying to bury anyway. It is a consequential piece of information. It is a very, very consequential operation. If unearthed, if there was like real transparency, which I don't believe there will ever be real transparency, I would be shocked. That would be, I mean, that would shake up the entire system. You're talking about powerful financiers. You're talking about heads of intelligence agencies. You're talking about foreign, you're talking about people, members of the royal family in England, MBS, Saudi Arabia, former prime ministers of Israel. It's just so, the network is so vast for some reason. Maybe because they all love Jeffrey Epstein's vibes, in spite of the full knowledge that he was a pedophilic sex trafficker, interestingly enough.
Help people. They should not ever have their names. Assault. I've helped some who've been victims of sexual, they're survivors. They don't want to be called victims. Their names should not be made public. It's hard enough for people that just are like that. When you take a case like the Jeffrey Epstein case, which is on the minds of millions of people across this country, there are people that are not kind. There are people that are mean and brutal. There are people from other countries that are trying to stir up more trouble in our country. And those survivors become victims again by the sheer hatred and brutality that people put towards them. Not, you know, some of us have empathy and compassion, but that's not what they feel. They feel the hate that comes at them. And we need to understand that's happening too much in our country, period, on social media.